Hello, my name is Popko, and this is a presentation on phishing as part of my final project for Dakota State University CSC716. So, a bit of background on phishing. At its most basic level, phishing is an attempt to get secure information. That may be your login credentials and password, maybe social security number info. It could also be credit card details or banking information. In general, these have often been phishing attacks via email. The most general clicked email subject line was official data breach notification. And that just indicates that a lot of people will click on those emails that seem official, even though they may not be. Attackers are now able to send out millions and millions of those emails. And if only a few click on those links, these attacks of phishing to get that information are still profitable. So, a bit of history on phishing. Essentially, phishing has been around as long as the internet. It originally started with AOL, or American Online. Attackers would use fraudulent credit card details, and at the time, AOL did not verify the credit card details as they were entered. Eventually, AOL caught on and started verifying those details. However, the attackers simply moved on. They started to make fake accounts and pretending to be official AOL workers to get confidential information of users. Again, AOL and users caught on. They started sending out information to be more aware of not getting caught by those attacks. So phishing just kept moving. It switched to emails. And like I mentioned before, they can use those emails to send out millions and millions of emails, and only a few need to reply or click on the link. Additionally, it has now moved towards social media as well, where they may pretend to be your friend or your cousin in order to get you to send money or get some information or some form of fraud. There are many techniques when it comes to phishing. One that we've mentioned that has been heavily used is email or spam. They send out millions of emails hoping to get a few clicks. They will often have a link in the message, and that link will probably use obfuscation or link manipulation, where a link looks legitimate but is not. It may look legitimate for a variety of reasons. It may use tiny URL where they shorten the URL in order to hide the actual link. They may misspell it. So instead of yourbank.com, it would be yourbanks.com. So it appears that it is actually your bank's website. Or they may use subdomains where it's yourbank.x.com, where you think it's coming from your bank, but it's actually coming from X. There's a wide variety of things they can use for link manipulation. Another vector of attack for phishing is spear phishing. This is where they typically target a group or an organization, and they take personal information to specifically direct that attack. For example, they may pretend to be a company's head of IT or your manager's manager or some form of direct attack. This has become easier in recent years as more information is available online, and they can just use all that information from social media to get a very targeted attack. Another attack vector is web-based, which is just where they will often take a look and feel of a website, which is how most users verify that a website is not false, is that look and feel. And they will take that website and attempt to gain users and pretend to be that website. Attackers also use cross-site scripting, where they execute malicious script on legitimate websites. So the website may be legitimate, but due to security vulnerabilities, it may have been attacked and now might have malicious script via those phishing attacks. Another technique is pop-ups. So you may have your bank's legitimate website and you've been doing a little online banking and you switch to a different tab for a while. All of a sudden you get a pop-up that says, hey, you are going to be logged out due to being non-active for so long. and then you're like, oh, okay, I still want to do some more. So you put your login credentials, your username, your password, and you think everything's good. However, that pop-up might not have come from the bank. It might be a phishing attack that is just there to get your information. Finally, we can also talk about vishing and smishing. So not all phishing attacks are super high tech. Vishing and smishing are just phishing over the phone or voice and phishing over text or SMS, respectively. This will often end up with someone calling you over the phone or texting you and pretending to be a bank official, a manager, some form of official, and trying to get various information or credit card details from you via that vishing or smishing attack. Next, I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk about the psychology of these attacks. We often think, why are people falling for these phishing attacks? Why do they reply to these Prince of Nigeria emails? Why do they click on these pop-ups? It can be hard to think of sometimes. We just think that maybe they just do not have the intelligence to deal with all of this information. However, it ends up being that often almost anyone can fall for a phishing attack. Generally, people are very overconfident in their abilities in almost anything they do. Most people tend to think that they're better drivers or that they could handle hazardous material better than others. And that definitely applies to the internet as well. They think that they won't fall for these attacks, that they're too smart, they know what they're doing. So they just simply will not fall for those attacks. Another reason is the lack of reward. Security, when you use secure best practices, the end reward is that nothing bad happens. So you don't necessarily get that gold sticker feeling of, hey, I actually did something that was worthwhile. Another reason is that security comes at a price. It's going to take extra time, extra effort, sometimes extra coding in order to have a more secure system. And some people are willing to take that gamble because they don't see that reward and they don't want that price. So they're like, okay, I will gamble that, maybe something bad will happen over a guaranteed loss of slight efficiency, even though, at the end of the day, security is definitely worth it due to the severe side effects that can definitely happen. Another reason is that users judge their websites based off look and feel, which attackers can replicate easily. Additionally, users are often not looking for those indicators of phishing or false websites. They're looking at the wrong things in order, not the indicators. And demographics can have a play as well. For example, women are more likely to click on links. So yeah, it can just be a wide variety of problems, and is definitely a serious issue. All is not lost, however. There are many countermeasures that we can use against phishing. A lot of these countermeasures do rely on the end user, and that is why it is so important to have education and training. We need to educate the users to be aware of farcical emails, to look out on those links that are shortened or complicated, to just be on the lookout for phishing emails. Many ways to do this education. A good one can be games. There are different games out there that try to make this education fun and, innovative and engaging for the end user in order to really understand that different phishing techniques. There's also persistent training where the IT department may send out fake phishing emails periodically to keep people on their toes and keep checking for those odd subject lines and shortened URLs, general malicious behavior. Another good way is to reward people for those good behaviors. For example, give them a slight bonus at the end of the year if you notice that they've been responding to those phishing emails to the IT department. And just give general rewards, that there is a tangible reward to using secure behavior. There are many tools when it comes to counteracting phishing. The first one is a password manager, which is Very useful. If people just have to memorize their passwords, they tend to have one and memorize it and use it across all the sites, which means that if you have, a online shopping site that's maybe not so secure and you have the same password as your online banking, then if you lose that online shopping site password that is, again, not so secure, then you also lose your banking information, which can be quite difficult to deal with. But if you have a password manager, then you'll have a password for every site that is unique and strong. And so if you lose that online shopping site password, yeah, that sucks. You're going to have to deal with it, but it is much less detrimental than losing the password to many, many sites. Another good tool is toolbars. There are toolbars that are out there that will help indicate if a site looks malicious or has some sort of phishing type algorithms going on, and it may just indicate that this could be a phishing attack. So you need to be aware, and those toolbars help indicate that. Another excellent tool is email filters. So those subject lines that are commonly phishing attacks, we can filter those emails out directly to our spam boxes and be able to say, hey, you don't even need to look at this. The end user doesn't even have to make that decision. We just say, hey, this is probably a bad email and we're not going to send it to you. Or we're going to at least give you a warning that it could be a bad email. And it can also filter out, based on the content, if there's fishy looking links or information or anything like that. Another good tool to use is restriction lists. So there are many known malicious websites out there, and just to have a list of websites that you should not go to because they're known to be malicious is a good idea, so that the end user doesn't accidentally click on that. A final tool I'm going to discuss is two-factor authentication, which can be so important. So not all users are going to use a password manager. They may lose their password to your site, which could be an issue, definitely a security risk. However, if you have two-factor authentication, it can help prevent that. So two-factor, the first factor is something you know, like a password, and then the second factor is something you have, which could be like a USB token that gives out a PIN, or it could be biometric data like a fingerprint or your eye, and it could be your cell phone, that it texts to your cell phone and you have to click a link from your cell phone. Any of these would make it that even if they did lose their password, anyone who is attacking wouldn't have that second factor and thus wouldn't be able to gain access. So in conclusion, phishing has been around since basically the beginning of the internet. As defenses have progressed, so have the attacks. So we always need to be on the lookout for what could be the next potential attack. There are many attack vectors. You can do email and spam where they're just sending out millions of emails hoping for someone to click on that link or reply to them. There's also spear phishing where you can take targeted information to attack a company or a group of people or even a single person. There are also web-based attacks where they're going to pretend to be a legitimate website and just have that look and feel of a legitimate website. There's also pop-ups, which can pop up and try to get information. There's also the psychology of why users fall for phishing attacks. One is definitely that overconfidence. People tend to think they're better at using the internet than they are. And security can definitely be a gamble for some people. They see that there's definitely a price to using the security in their efficiency, or that it's slightly annoying or something like that, and then they don't see that reward. So there can be definite psychological reasons that someone may not use security or may fall for a phishing attack. Finally, there are many countermeasures. Some of the most important are that education and training, whether that's via games or just persistently testing people, that education and training is so important. And finally, there are many tools for these countermeasures. You can have a password manager to make sure you have a unique password for every site. You have toolbars that help indicate whether there's phishing. You can filter out nefarious emails, have restriction lists on malicious websites, and then finally have that two-factor authentication that can really help counteracting losing data and falling for phishing attacks. That is my presentation. Thank you for listening.